All right. What are some thoughts? Let's talk about it. Ever feed.
So I think it's gonna say hello, then Yoda's gonna come, then a second later I is gonna come.
Okay. So Rafid says it's going to say hello, Yoda, and then in a second it's going to say I am. Do we agree?
Yeah.
Any disagrees? Oh, we have no disagrees. Okay. Great. So who wants to explain to me why? Kevin, let's do it. I saw you explaining it already.
So first the console log is being stored into the stack.
Okay, so we've got our call stack, we'll say. So we're in our index.js, right? Then we have our console log, you say, where it's hello. Okay. Then what?
And then that gets executed, right? So
Okay.
it comes out,
So that gets popped off the stack. Okay.
and then the set time out comes next
Okay.
into the stack.
Yep. So we've got our set time on our stack.
That gets popped out, but it goes into the memory.
Okay, so this gets moved over to the web API, we're saying. So this is gonna wait a second. Okay. And then what?
And then it's going to console that log out.
Okay, so we log our Yoda.
So that gets popped out.
It gets popped off. Okay.
And then the web API has to complete, so it goes into the queue.
Okay, so that finishes, and it gets moved over to our, we'll say, our queue here. So we'll have our callback waiting.
And then that gets pushed into the stack.
Almost, so our index has to be done because we finished reading that file. Okay, yeah, and then callback gets pushed into here. Okay, great. It gets moved to here.
And then that gets executed.
Yeah, so then we have a log here, which is I am. Keep going.
And then that gets popped out.
That gets popped off. That gets popped off. That's done. So in the order that we saw them, it was hello, Yoda, I am. Questions on that? Let's try it. Hello? Hello, Yoda, I am. Right? Something like that. Yoda. I'll get it eventually. Okay, great. So what's going to happen if we change this to a 0? Take a second to talk about it with your partner or the person beside you.
It's not. It's still putting it away. All right, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. Clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. Okay, great. What do we think? Any new voices? Any new voices? Will.
It's going to be the same thing. But all of them are going to the what is it? Go to the callback.
All of them are going to the callback. Tell me.
Tell me more about that.
So it's gonna be the same log, the same order. It's first, console log, hello first, set timeout, we're gonna send it to the web API,
Nice.
right?
Okay.
And then console log again,
Okay.
and then console log again.
Okay. Yeah, Maria. Oh.
I think it's the hello, and then you.
Okay.
And then it won't take us like a second to just go.
To I am. Okay. So who agrees that this is going to do the exact same thing? All right. Henry, what's I've seen some up and downs.
Yeah, it's gonna be the same thing with a much faster rate.
It's just not going to wait a second. Okay. 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 Any strong disagreers who want to fight their point? No? Okay. Let's try it out. Yeah, right? So this is doing the exact same thing. The process is the same as Will was saying, right? It's going to log, it's going to go off, we're going to hit our set timeout, it's going to get moved over to the web API, the stack's going to continue, we're going to hit our log again. This is going to clear, this is going to finish. The set timeout, we'll get the callback, we'll get moved into the callback queue. Once the stack is empty, that will get moved back into the stack, and then that will log again. Yeah, Phil.
Within this whole event, so when you have that hello, does that like go to like a heap? Is that what that?
The heap is something to do with memory. I'm not really sure. I wouldn't really worry too much about the heap. Just worry about this call stack to web API to callback queue. Well,
Okay, the callback is only gonna be two things. Like two stacks, right? Not more than two.
it could go more, right? If it was a different problem, right? Our callback could call another function, which would put that function on top, which could call another function. So it all just depends on what the callback is doing. If it's just console logging, it's just going to put console log and then it's going to pop off. But if it's actually calling other functions, then those functions will get added onto the call stack. Any? Does that make sense? Not make sense?
Is the callback the only one that can take the last stack? The last stack.
Tell me what you mean.
When the stack finished logging the indexes,
Yep.
what the first that comes in is the callback, right?
Yeah, so this is a queue, right? Like a line of different callbacks. When this gets emptied, the first person in that line, or the first callback in the line, will get moved and put into the call stack. And then it won't move on. We won't get another item from the queue until this is empty again. That's a good question. Any other questions? So this is like a question you could get asked in an interview. Like, what is the event loop? It's not far off from a real question that I've been asked it. I had to give a what is an event loop lecture to get this job. So I watched that other video that we just watched about 40 times. And used a lot of his examples because I couldn't just show the video because I had to get the job. But the video was better than what I did, of course. Any other questions, though? Okay, so you should be prepared to be able to talk about that in an interview, that process. Super common intro question. All right, so that's our event loop and all that. So then the next thing we've got to talk about, which I think we're in this folder already, is NPM. So Who knows what NPM stands for? Anybody? No? Oh, you know? Yeah, okay. Kevin, what is it? Manager, yeah. Very, very good. Okay. So, NPM is node package. I think it's manager, right? The manager or mod? It could be right. I think it's. I'm pretty sure it's manager. And it manages modules. Okay. So node package manager, aka NPM. So we've already been dealing with packages, node packages a lot. We might not really like been realizing it, but we have used them a fair bit. And so this is like best way to explain this. You have a bunch of code that's being written, and you want to be able to reuse this code in different spots. Okay, so you don't have to keep rewriting all of the same code. And this is something code that can help you do something. So maybe you have code that does some kind of specific math problem, and you don't want to keep writing that function over and over again. So you go and you save this function inside of some kind of library or some way you save it so that you can reuse that function in other files or in other projects. Does it seem fair? So we'll think of modules as like reusable code. Just get rid of this stuff. Okay, so we have these reusable code. So there's 3 types of node modules. The first type is, so let me just write 3 types of modules. So the first is core modules, short for Corey. Thank you. It's okay, not every joke's a home run, right? I'm an instructor, not a comedian. So these are modules that you can import without any special installation. So these are built into our node. Can anyone think of one that we've already seen? I don't know if we've actually seen one. Okay. What's this name? Okay, so these are built in to node. So some examples of these are HTTP. It might be HTTPS. I don't remember. It's okay. FS is one. This is popular. So let's see what this would look like. Okay. So let's say I have. Okay, I might look it up using FS example. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we have to require that package, right? So we've done that before where we say const, and I'll call this FS, and I use the require keyword. This means I want to go and require this module. FS is built in, so I can just write FS. I don't have to install it. I don't have to do anything. I just assume that it's there. It exists. Yeah, is it? Is readline another one?
Yeah.
There might be one. I think readline is part of FS. So that I can read the file. And let's go ahead and just create another file. I'm going to call it like demo.txt, like txt. And let's just write like, hello everyone, don't you all wolf JavaScript? Did you get the you reference? Okay, right? Yeah. Oh, Henry. It's from a Netflix series, season 2. You. Yeah. That's all I've done since I got home and trying to recover. I kept falling asleep during it. Yeah, very good show unless you're Henry. So in that case, you will not like it. Don't worry, Don't spoil. I'm not going to say any spoilers. You shouldn't spoil anything. I'm definitely not making a spoiler by writing "Don't you wolf JavaScript." If you think that's a spoiler, then you're like really uptight. It's definitely not a spoiler. Okay, and so inside of this, I can use fs. So I'm going to use something built in. Actually, I wonder if I can just console log fs real quick so you can see what it looks like. So let's go ahead and run node. And this is fs. Right, so we can see it's like this massive object. It's got all of these things that we don't know what it means. I don't know what it means. You don't need to know, probably ever, what most of these things mean. But then you can see it also has all of these functions attached to it, like challenge sync and write file sync. There's read streams, which is another key which points to all these other things. It's just a huge object with nested objects and functions that will do things, right? And so if I wanted to write code to do all this, it would be a lot to write and to do it over and over again. So Node does this for us by having this module available, which keeps life a little bit easy. So let's go ahead and do something with it. So let's say I want to say fs dot, I think I can do read file. And read file, if I'm not mistaken, takes in the file that I wanted to read. So we would say demo.txt. And then I think it takes in a callback function. Yeah. So I'll say function of an error as an argument and data as the other argument. And then let's just console log data. And then see what happens. Oops, sorry about that weird box. Okay. So we'll go ahead and run node.
You wrote demo with you got this up
Thank you. Yeah, so it also logged undefined, so that's, at least it doesn't work when it's not supposed to. And we get this weird buffer thing. This is how this data is being read. We can see the data. I forget how, but maybe I can use this stuff. Oh, this is creating a whole server. I think I can write the file too. I think I can do like fs dot write file, and we can make a file called like test.txt and just do error data. And I forget how to do it. honestly, I don't remember. It's not like something I have to do on the reg. Fs.write file. Let's see. Honestly, this is not something you'll have to do very regularly. Stack Overflow. Oh, clicked on the wrong thing. It's just something to be aware that this. Why does this keep happening? It keeps loading so slow that I keep misclicking. Okay. Oh, so this is one way for it to just write the file. Here, I'll show you this example. All right, so we saw that we can buffer it and get all that weird data. Which there is a way to get that to be back interpreted. I really don't remember it. I don't want to spend too much time on it.
Is this similar argument?
If this is what?
Is this similar argument? You know how you're on that data and you just kind of without long argument? Is it like
Oh, not really. These are the different packets of like chunks because it doesn't want to grab all of it at once. Because I'm using an asynchronous thing, it doesn't grab all of it at one time. If I did synchronous, it would go and it would take forever. So each buffer is like a piece of it. It's a little weird. Let's see what happens if I run this now. The file was saved. I didn't really save anything. Let's see if I can test that. Okay, see, so now it created a text file that says, hey there. And we got that by saying which file we wanted to write to, saying the message we wanted to be added into there, and we wrote this like other function if there's an error, and at the end it console logs. Okay, it's not incredible. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. It's not something you're not going to need to use constantly. That's all. So I don't want to go too deep. Also, I'm not really prepared to go too deep because it's not something you'll need. It's something to be aware of, and we will be using a little bit of the HTTP module tomorrow. Okay, so that's the first way. That's the first kind of module. That's a core module. That's built in. The second type of module is local module. Okay, so a local module is a module that you define and create. So this is something that you define and create. Okay, so if you think back to our all of the games we were building, and we didn't want to put it all in one file, and we split things up into multiple files with different classes in each file. That was essentially us creating all of these little modules that we could access from different files, right? So let's go ahead and create kind of like a math file. So I'll make a file called math.js. And so we have a function, let's say. So I'll say const sum, and my sum function just takes in an a and a b, and it returns a plus b. Okay, implicit return. Let's also add a multiply. So let's say const multiply, and it takes in an a and a b, and that's just going to return A times B. So we're all the way in this file, but if we want to be able to use sum in our index.js, the question is how do we make that happen? Right? Because I can't just write sum here. If I do, it will break. Here. If I go console.log sum, and I pass in 4 and 5, so looking for 9. Right? What's going to happen when I run this? Yeah, right? We got it's going to throw an error because it's going to say sum is not defined. Because sum's in a different file. So how do I get sum to be right? So I have to export and I'm going to have to import. So there's a few ways to do module.exports for this, and I guess I'm going to show you all of the ways today. So one way is we can say module.exports, and module.exports exports an object, right? Just like how we saw when we looked at the FS module, that was an object. And so we can add key values in here. So one key I could say is the sum, and I would want this to point to the function that I wrote earlier called sum. I could do the same thing again with multiply. So I could say I want this key to be multiply, and I want that to point to the function multiply. Questions on that? Okay. Hopefully this is like a little review with a little bit new stuff in here too. Before, when we were just writing the class name, we weren't putting them in curly braces because the class itself already is an object, right? Just to head off that question. Okay, so then inside of our index.js, let's go ahead and require that. So we'll say const, I'll say, well, I could say sum, or I could say math. Let's say I say math first. And I'll say require. I could say, this is the next module. So how do I require it from a local module? Anyone remember?
The file path.
Yeah, right, the file path, the relative path to that other file. So in this case, it's /math.js. I'm just going to comment this out for now. And let's go ahead and console.log math. What do we think math will look like? Okay, talk to the person next to you for 30 seconds and decide what math is going to look like and why.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you say it again, please?
All right, clap your hands once if you can hear my voice. Clap your hands twice if you can hear my voice. All right, so what do we think? Somebody want to throw up their hand, tell me what they think. Yeah, Nilver. Awesome. So Nilver says we're going to get, when we see math, we're going to see an object with the keys of sum and multiply, and those will both be pointing to functions. Agree? Disagree? Anyone disagree? Okay, so it doesn't seem like anyone disagrees. However, I heard most people, when I originally asked the question, said a function. But nobody specifically said it's an object with keys that point to functions. Right? That's an important distinction. If somebody asks you and you say a function, you are probably going to be wrong if that isn't in fact an object. Let's see. Okay, so it is an object. Right? It's not a function. It's an object that has keys that point to functions. So if I want to use sum here, can I write it like this?
No.
What's wrong, Henry?
Because in this case, the function is math. I mean, because when you would try, instead of putting sum, you put math, and then
Math?
it will give you an object of both things, and then I need to key it into the sum.
So I have to key into math at the key of sum, right? So I could say math dot sum and get 4 or 5. So let's go ahead and try that. Okay, so we get our 9. So there's this extra step that we had to do there. Okay, so there's going to be a couple new things to learn right here. And these are things that have come with ES6, which allow us to do things in a little bit shorthanded types of ways. So first things first, I don't need to have a key with the name that points to the exact same name as a value, right? That looks a little repetitive. With ES6, if the key and value are the exact same name, you only need to write the key. Sum, comma, multiply.
That's only one there is.
Yes. Because sum points to sum and multiply points to multiply, we can just say sum and multiply. Okay, if the key pointed to a different thing, it would have to say that different thing. But since they're just pointing to the exact same word, we can shorthand write it like this. Yeah, Tom.
Can you explore the whole file without sum and without all values? Explore math.js?
I'm not sure. There's a few other ways for us to export, which we're going to go through. But I don't know if it will answer your specific question. I think we'll have to tell it at some point what it's exporting. Right? So we could just do it like this, and this should still work. And let's prove it to ourselves. We still get 9. Awesome. Make that a little bigger. Okay. So something that's maybe kind of ugly is that we're also doing this math.sum. Right? That's kind of an ugly pattern too, potentially. So there's another ES6 property that you should be aware of. And it's called object destructuring. So I'm going to just go ahead and leave a comment here called object destructuring. So what is object destructuring? Object destructuring is when one object's assignment is that of the same as another's. Let me just show you what I mean. So let's say I said let object, this is I can say this object. Here, I'll just show you exactly what I mean. I can say const, and instead of saying math, I can say I want an object here with these keys. So the keys being sum and multiply. And I'm saying if I assign this to an object that has those keys, so require /math.js. Right, so we saw up here that math is an object, right? Required that math.js gives us back this object. Specifically, it gives us back this object, sum, pointing to some kind of function, right? And multiply, pointing to some kind of function, right? These are the keys. So if I create this other object and I throw a let in front of it or constant, and I have it assigned this, it will go, okay, the key in this function, or the key in this object here, this first object, oh, the stupid box. The key in this object is going to point to the value of whatever this key's value is. Right? This is the same thing as me writing this. Sum pointing to sum, multiply pointing to multiply, and because this sum points to the same sum in here as the same key, this value will become the value that this key points to. It's a little weird. It takes a little bit of time. But with that, I can get rid of the math here. And it should work. It still works. I'll make this a little bit more clear by writing math. Maybe that will help. So we've made this math object. And from the math object, it has a key called sum. So we want to set this sum to be the same as this sum's function. And we want to set this object's multiply to be the same as this math object's multiply. That's all that is. But based off of the last rule we learned, where if the key and the value are pointing to the same word, we can remove these values and just write sum and multiply. And it still works. So this is a shorter way of just getting exactly the function we want. Right? I also don't need to grab multiply right now because I'm not actually using multiply. So why grab it? I can just go ahead and grab sum out of the math. It's a shorthand thing. If it's really confusing to you, do use the other way for now, but you should definitely try to get comfortable eventually with using this. But you'll see this a lot more. I know it's the first time we're really seeing it, but we'll see it like a lot. Like we'll import so many things with React and stuff, and I'll keep writing it like this. Okay. Any questions on that? Yeah.
You still have to do your concept to apply
Yes and no. So I'm doing math so that I was trying to make it more clear. I can also just do it like that. That's how you'll end up writing it eventually. Okay, this is called object destructure. Kind of cool. Let's talk about some of the other ways to export. So inside of math here, if I didn't want to export this way, I could do something else instead. So let's say I got rid of these. I could write my module exports to wrap everything. So I could say module.exports, and I could put this whole thing inside of a function essentially. So I could say sum, inside of an object, I'm sorry. Sum pointing to an anonymous function, so I could say a, b, and that just returns a plus b. and I could have multiply. I could write my functions like this. So if I wrap everything in modular exports, I don't have to remember to do it all here like this at the end. I tend to write it this way, but you could write it this way. That's totally fine. We'll see that it still works. Right? This is, again, this is just us exporting an object with the key and the value, right? The key is this time we're just saying is the name of the function, and the value is just that function itself. It's just another way to do it. Right? Let's learn another way. Giving us back these so that those now exist in the space. Module.exports we said was what? An object, right? So I can add keys to objects, right? I could say sum points to sum. Module.exports dot multiply points to multiply. Right? I could write it like this, where I'm adding properties at that key to point to those values. I spelled, thanks. Importer, exporter. Right, okay, still works. Do I think this is the prettiest way? Not really. With that same idea, I could also forget these up here, and again make the key just point to the value. Okay, I'm not going to do this one, just doesn't matter. Right, I could do it like that. Let's also get that right. Still works. I don't think this is the prettiest way either. If I were you, to kind of MU, I would either write it this way, the first way, or this way, the second way. I think those will be the cleanest. I think writing it like this is kind of weird. That's my personal opinion. But let's go ahead and uncomment that out so we still have it working. Questions on any of those ways to export? Importing it works the same, so that's the nice thing. Oh, the computer is really getting hot. You guys can hear the fan, right? Great, that's what I get it. We'll see what happens. Okay, and then let's just talk about the third and final way. Third and final type of module is our, what's the exact word for it? Third-party module. Third-party module. Did anyone think of a third-party module that we've been using? Yeah, right. Readline sync was one. Axios, I heard. Any others? Those are probably the main ones we've used, right? Right. So these are modules built by other people. So they're not native to Node. They weren't made by you, but some person out there was like, hey, I just wrote a bunch of ballin code that maybe not everyone else wants to rewrite. So here it is. And then you get all this cred, everyone uses it and it's kind of a big deal. It's kind of cool, especially if you have something that's really popular. It says how many downloads and all that. So there's a couple different ways for us to add these third-party packages, which we've already also talked about before. So we'll just kind of do a quick review of that. So let's say I want to use Axios in the back end, right? I can't use it in a script tag because where would that go? There's no HTML here, right? We're just dealing with JavaScript. But we love Axios, so what can we do? Well, we can install it. So there's a couple different ways to get this package JSON file. So a package JSON file, package.json, it lists dependencies that are needed to run code. Okay, so if you create a weather application and you need Axios, and I go ahead and clone your app, and I don't have Axios installed on my computer or anything, I just run it, it's going to break, right? It's going to say there is no Axios or anything. So inside of the package JSON is where you list all of these dependencies that your application depends on in order for things to run. So inside of here it has Axios and it has whatever else you use. And so before I actually would run your application, I have to run NPM install. Right? You can think of this as like the recipe of your app, kind of like you need all of these ingredients in order to actually make the cake. And so NPM install is like ordering all of them, clicking the order all button on a recipe page. Or like, I know it's there. I don't know anyone who uses that. It's like order all these ingredients. I just want to cook today. Anyway, so npm install will create that package. It will create a node modules folder based off of the package JSON. So if you're building your own, a couple different ways to get your package JSON going. You can just immediately start installing local packages or third-party packages locally on your machine. Or you can do the NPM init, which stands for initialize. So here, let me open this so we can see the changes. So I'll say NPM init. And it's going to ask me some questions, such as my package name. I don't care what it is. So I'm just going to hit enter. It's going to ask for my version number, maybe a description, my entry point. It's suggesting index.js because that's the file. That's my main file. I'm going to say OK. Test command, get repository. I could put my repositories in my app here, right? You can put information here if you want. Now, you don't necessarily need to. Keywords, the author, short word. Enter license. No, is this and then it gives me an example of what my package JSON could look like. And I go, yeah, no, that looks fine. And it creates this package JSON. So that we can open it up. And we can see a little bit about it. It's got all this information. No big deal. So let's start adding packages. Right, so let's say I want to have the ability to call Axios in my application. So I'm going to say npm install. I could just write I, that's short for that. And I'll say Axios. I don't think you have to do -- save. You used to have to do that. I think that's changed in the newer versions of Node. We'll find out soon though. So I'll say install Axios. And we see that it added this dependencies with the word Axios, and it says the version that it is using. So you no longer need to do -- save, but just be aware that that's something that some people still think, and it's still in the curriculum, but it's like a little antiquated. Questions on this so far? All right, cool. So now we've got Axios, and so this is now in our, we can access it locally. So let's go ahead and say const Axios, and we can require it as Axios. So let's go back and find the Ghibli API. To get the films. All right, this is the same thing we were doing this morning. And so now I'm able to go ahead and use Axios on the back end here, the server side, right, the same as I would on the front side. So I can say axios.get. I can do my little URL. This is going to return a promise, right? So I can just chain my thens on there. I can make this a function and all that, but for now I'll just chain on there. So I'll say res, and I'll console.log res, and we'll also console log res.data. Data is a property that we get back with Axios specifically. And let's go ahead and run this. So we will, oops, no, I don't want that. Okay, we'll run node.index.js, and we can see that we got all of the movies again. All right, it's a lot of stuff. This was what we got back in our response, and then this, and then down lower is what we got back in our response .data, which we have my neighbor tutorial and its descriptions and all of that, right? This looks the same as what it looked like on the browser, but now we're doing it in the back end, which is kind of cool. Right, so that's how you get a third-party module. Right, so there's the three. There's the core module. Core module is built into Node. Right, this is like FS, HTTP, maybe HTTPS. I forget which one. We'll know tomorrow for sure. Our local modules, right? These are the things we wrote ourselves, and then we have our third-party modules. These are something that somebody cool wrote that we like, and they've made it available for us. Any questions on any of that? All right, cool. So Jenya, can you post pairs? Okay. So there is. I'm gonna